05:20 a.m. A muddy field in the Kursk gray zone. Russia's $85 million pride and joy, the Su-35 Flanker E, sits paralyzed in the dirt, its landing gear crushed after a humiliating belly landing. Ukrainian GUR special operators have exactly 20 minutes to secure the $50 million Irbis E radar before the Russian Air Force arrives to vaporize the evidence. If they succeed, they own the Kremlin's most guarded secrets. If they fail, they're caught in the world's most expensive crossfire. This wasn't just a mechanical failure. It was a heist that started 2 hours ago with a swarm of ghosts. If you ask why they didn't proceed with the hijacking of a second MiG, but instead targeted a Su-35, I'll tell you an unbelievable military secret. You see, the Su-35's Irbis E radar is a masterpiece of engineering, but it runs on software that has a very peculiar habit. Every time the system boots up, it sends out a tiny encrypted handshake to its home base, kind of like how your old Windows PC used to call home to check for an activation key. To the Russians, this was a standard security feature. To the Ukrainians, it was a breadcrumb trail. They hadn't just found a flaw, they'd found a backdoor into the most guarded cockpit in the Kremlin's arsenal. For 4 days, they watched this specific Su-35 from the 105th Guards Division. They knew its fuel levels, its maintenance schedule, and most importantly, the exact moment it would be most vulnerable in the gray zone of Kursk. But here is the problem. Kursk isn't a playground, it's a hornet's nest. The Russians have draped a steel umbrella over the region with S-400 and Panzer batteries every 30 miles. It's a place where anything with wings usually goes to die within seconds. The stakes couldn't be higher. If the Ukrainians just wanted to destroy the jet, they could have used a missile and called it a day. But a pile of charred titanium is useless. They wanted the brain, that $50 million Irbis E radar, and the encryption codes that protect the entire Russian Air Force data link. The goal was a soft kill, but entering Russian-controlled airspace meant flying into a radar wall that can track 300 targets at once. One wrong move, 1 second of hesitation, and the hunters would become the hunted. But new tactics with new technology from the US will turn the impossible into the possible. The trap was set. Now all they needed was for the Su-35 to take the bait and fly into a phantom maze it would never forget. 4:30 a.m. 20 Ukrainian Lu-T drones roar into the sky, their engines screaming at 120 mph at $15,000 each. These are essentially flying lawnmowers packed with explosives, and they are heading straight for the heart of Russia's energy supply in Kursk. Inside the Russian command center, the steel umbrella is in a total meltdown. 20 blips are crawling across their monitors, and the commanders are faced with a brutal choice. Do they ignore the threat and watch their fuel hubs burn? Or do they fire $2 million S-400 missiles at $15,000 fiberglass toys? The panic wins. Moscow screams for the heavy hitters. 2 Su-35 Flanker E's scream off the Voronezh runway, dumping 36 600 pounds of raw afterburner thrust to intercept the garbage swarm. To these elite pilots, this is a turkey shoot. They want their easy kills, and they want them now. 6 minutes into the mission, the first Su-35 pilot locks his OLS-35 infrared tracker onto a Lu-T. He doesn't even bother with a radar lock. He wants a clean, quiet kill. The heat-seeking R-73 missile leaves the rail at Mach 2.5. 5 seconds later, boom! The Lu-T drone disappears in a significant thermal event, turning $15,000 of plastic into a shower of burning confetti. The Russian pilot chirps over the radio, "Target neutralized, too easy." He banks hard, pulls 7 Gs, and lines up the next one. Another R-73 streaks through the dawn sky, impact. A second drone vaporizes. Russian commanders are cheering, but they should be checking their bank accounts. They just spent $4 million on missiles to take out $30,000 worth of drones. It's like using a Ferrari to run over a couple of $10 skateboards. It works, but the math is suicidal. The Russian pilots are cocky now, pushing their throttles forward, hunting the remaining drones. They are moving deeper into the engagement zone, leaving the safety of their ground-based air defenses behind. They think they're winning the world's most expensive game of duck hunt. What they don't realize is that while they were busy blowing up cheap decoys, their own flight computers were being fed a digital poison through that backdoor Ukraine found 96 hours ago. A Su-35 pursued the last remaining drone, venturing far beyond its safe zone, and it became the target of the ambush. Every kill they record is drawing them further into the phantom swarm. A hall of mirrors where the real ghosts are about to show up and they won't be as easy to hit as a lawnmower with wings. Here is why shooting down those cheap lawnmowers was actually a death sentence for an $85 million jet. The moment that the Russian pilot pulled the trigger on the Lu-T drones, he did two things. He broadcast his exact GPS coordinates to everyone within 100 miles. As the first drone vaporized, 60 drones from the Phantom Swarm 2.0 unit launched simultaneously from hidden thickets just 10 miles away. Imagine you're playing a game of hide and seek in a hall of mirrors. You see your opponent everywhere, but every time you lung, you just hit glass. That is exactly what started happening on the Su-35's Airbus E radar screen. These 60 drones weren't just flying. They were carrying powerful AI processors that were talking directly to the Russian radar. Using the digital backdoor, Ukraine hacked these drones, knew exactly which frequencies the Su-35 was scanning. They didn't just jam the signal, they manipulated it. The result? On the Russian pilot's monitor, he didn't see 60 tiny drones. He saw 60 F-16 Vipers screaming toward him from every single direction at Mach 2. This is the wow moment. The pilot went into a total panic. He tried to lock onto a target at his 12 o'clock, but it instantly vanished and reappeared at his 6 o'clock. He's slamming buttons trying to get a missile lock, but the $50 million radar system is just returning error messages. Target lost. Reacquiring. The world's most advanced air superiority display now resembles a broken 1990s television set in the midst of a thunderstorm. But while the Su-35 was busy chasing shadows and burning fuel in a frantic dogfight against ghosts, it completely missed a tiny whisper-quiet signal skimming just 50 feet above the ground. That was the real threat, a lone Ukrainian F-16 Viper. Using data fed directly from a Saab 340 AWACS, circling safely 150 miles away, the F-16 kept its own radar completely dark. It was a silent assassin. At a distance of 40 miles, the Ukrainian pilot pressed the pickle button and let loose an AIM-120 missile. Ironically, this wasn't a shot to kill. Ukraine didn't want a charred pile of titanium. They wanted the brain. The AIM-120 was set to proximity fuse mode. It wasn't aiming for the engines, it was aiming for the space just a few feet above the Su-35's spine. 3, 2, 1. The missile detonated, but it wasn't aiming for the cockpit. It was programmed to explode 10 feet above the rear tail section. A cloud of tungsten shredded the horizontal stabilizers and severed the primary hydraulic lines in the Stinger tail. In an instant, the invincible beast was paralyzed. It didn't disintegrate. It became a high-speed glider. As the Su-35 performed a brutal belly landing in the Kursk mud, the fuselage acted as a 60-foot shock absorber, keeping the Airbus E radar in the nose perfectly intact. The Russian pilot has exactly 1.5 seconds to make a choice. He pulls the handles. The canopy jets away, and the pilot is punched into the sky under a white parachute, watching his $85 million career disappear into the dirt. But the real war is just beginning. Every radar operator within 200 miles just saw that blip vanish. Moscow is in a total frenzy. They know exactly what's on that plane. The Airbus E radar is the crown jewel, and they'd rather turn that field into a crater than let Ukraine touch it. 5:22 a.m. Back at Russian command, the order is cold and immediate. Vaporize the wreckage. No survivors, no evidence. 2 Su-34 fullback bombers orbiting 60 miles away are immediately vectored to the crash site. Their mission is simple: drop 4 Fab E-500 laser-guided bombs and turn that Su-35 into a 30-foot crater before the Ukrainians can even smell the jet fuel. However, the GUR Grand Theft Aero team is already there. Emerging from a nearby tree line like a monster from a heavy metal music video, the M1070 HET heavy equipment transporter roars into view. Imagine the world's most aggressive Uber XL, but built by Oshkosh and designed to haul 70-ton M1 Abrams tanks through liquid mud. This 8x8 beast, powered by a 700-horsepower Detroit diesel engine, churns through the earth, its 53-inch tires leaving ruts deep enough to bury a motorcycle. The GUR technicians jump out before the truck even stops. They have exactly 12 minutes. Moving a Su-35 with its 50-foot wingspan is impossible on these roads, so they attach linear-shaped charges along the wing roots. In a controlled snap, the massive wings are severed. The Kursk mud, flash frozen by the morning chill, acts like a lubricated slide. The M1070's dual 55,000-pound winches scream as they drag the wingless fuselage onto the trailer. It's a 15-ton heavy metal ballet rehearsed 50 times on old Soviet frames. The clock is ticking and the sky isn't waiting. Vampire, the Ukrainian Saab 340 AWACS loitering safely behind the border detects the Russian Su-34s locking their laser designators. The Russians launch 2 Kh-29 missiles each carrying a 700-pound warhead streak toward the wreckage at Mach 2. But Ukraine didn't just bring a truck, they brought an invisible shield. The 50 remaining AI drones form a multispectral obscuration wall at 500 feet. They release a thick cloud of carbon fiber chaff and metallic aerosols. To the Russian Su-34's laser designators and TV-guided Kh-29 missiles, the crash site simply vanishes. The laser beams scatter uselessly against the aerosol cloud and the TV seekers are blinded by a gray void. The missiles lose lock, overshooting the wreckage by 974 feet. The shockwave shatters the windows of a nearby farmhouse, but the Su-35 remains intact. The Russian Su-34 pilots are furious. They dive lower trying to get a visual, but they run straight into the Patriot trap. A Ukrainian Patriot battery hidden in a forest 20 miles away finally switches its radar from standby to kill. Search mode is a lighthouse, track mode is a spotlight. The Su-34's radar warning receiver screams a solid tone. The Russian pilot jinks hard, dumping chaff like his life depends on it because it does. A PAC-3 interceptor leaves the canister at Mach 4. In less than 15 seconds, the sky over Kursk is lit up by a $50 million fireball as the first Su-34 is neutralized. Down on the ground, the M1070 driver is sweating through his tactical vest. The Su-35 is finally on the trailer, but it's sitting awkwardly. 8,000 tons of grain silo in our last video was heavy, but this is $85 million of don't drop it. Go, go, go. The M1070 slams into gear, its 18-speed transmission screaming as it pulls the streamlined 15-ton fuselage load onto the paved road. They're moving at 45 mph fast for a house on wheels, but a sitting duck for Russian artillery. Moscow is now throwing everything they have. They launch a swarm of 10 Lancet suicide drones from a nearby ridge. These are the scalpels of the Russian army. They dive at 100 mph, aiming for the M1070's engine block. But Ukrainian electronic warfare specialists on the back of the HET activate a frequency-hopping dome. Using Starlink Mini for real-time data sync, they create a 300-foot dead zone. As the Lancets enter the radius, their video feeds turn to static. 4 Lancets go dumb, crashing harmlessly into the ruts. 3 more are picked off by Gyur operators using handheld Skynote S jammers. It's a 30-mile dash to the border through a corridor of fire. Russian 152mm artillery is bracketing the highway, the shells landing closer and closer. Every impact sends a spray of shrapnel against the exposed airframe. It sounds like 1,000 hammers hitting a bell. The GOR team isn't just driving, they're working. Inside the trailer's support cabin, a technician has a fiber optic cable snaked into the Su-35's avionics bay. He's not looking at the artillery, he's looking at the code. "I've got it," he whispers over the comms. The Airbus E is still pinging. It's trying to call Voronezh. The Russian radar, even in its dead state, is still a traitor. It's broadcasting a low-power maintenance signal designed to help Russian technicians find a lost bird. But in the hands of the GUR, this signal is a digital compass. As the M1070 crosses the final bridge into Ukrainian-held Sumy, the Russian Iskander-M ballistic missile finally arrives. It's too late. The missile's 1,000-pound warhead vaporizes the bridge exactly 45 seconds after the M1070 cleared it. The heist is successful. The big boy has delivered the prize. The Su-35 sits on the trailer muddy battered, but its brain is wide open for the taking. As the M1070 HET rolls into a heavily camouflaged hangar in the Sumy region. This is where the ultimate betrayal transforms from a battlefield heist into a strategic earthquake for the Kremlin. Inside the hangar, Ukrainian GOR cyber engineers isolate the Su-35's Airbus E radar in a Faraday cage, a room that kills all rogue transmissions. But they don't just sit there. They plug a fiber optic cable directly into the maintenance port, creating a man-in-the-middle bridge. This allows the radar to think it's talking to the sky while the GUR filters every data packet. What they find inside this digital link is the holy grail of lazy Russian engineering. Remember that call home handshake we mentioned? It turns out the Russian Su-35's avionics suite operates exactly like a high-end but poorly secured smart home system. To maintain air superiority sync, every Su-35 in the 105th Guards Division is programmed to periodically ping a central server at the Voronezh Air Base to update its encrypted data link. It's the ultimate irony. Russia's most advanced fighter jet has the digital loyalty of a stolen iPhone trying to find its owner. Instead of blocking the signal, the GUR technicians create a digital sandbox, a fake environment that tricks the Su-35 into thinking it's still sitting on a Russian tarmac. The radar pings Voronezh and Voronezh pings back. Bingo! The backtrace is instantaneous. Within minutes, the Ukrainians aren't just looking at one jet, they're looking through the eyes of the entire Voronezh airbase. They've bypassed the firewall and now have a real-time map of every hangar, every fuel depot, and most importantly, the exact GPS coordinates of every other Su-35 currently undergoing maintenance. Moscow didn't just lose an $85 million aircraft, they just handed over the master key to their entire frontline air operations. Within 48 hours of this soft kill extraction, Russia is forced to ground its entire Flanker E fleet in the region. They realize their encrypted data link is no longer a shield, it's a tracking beacon. This creates a massive 200-mile security hole in the Kursk front, forcing Russian bombers to fly without fighter escorts or retreat to bases deep inside Russia. The steel umbrella has been folded up and tossed into the trash. Now let's look at the math of betrayal. On one side, you have the Kremlin, which spent 15 years and billions of rubles developing a Raptor killer that ended up being captured by a 700-horsepower truck and some clever code. On the other side, you have Ukraine, which used $600,000 worth of Phantom drones to secure a $50 million radar and intelligence worth billions. But here's the question for you, the tactical minds at home. If you were the Ukrainian commander and you just discovered this digital backdoor, what would your next move be? Would you launch a massive strike on the Voronezh base immediately? Or would you stay quiet and continue listening to every Russian flight plan for the next month? Let me know your strategic choice in the comments below. Thanks for watching this deep dive into the heist of the century. If you want to see more Grand Theft Auto and the tech that's changing the face of modern war, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Bye for now.